The Budapest Gambit for Beginners, How to Punish d4. 6 games, every move explained. Let's begin. The Budapest Gambit gives away a pawn on move 2 on purpose, and takes it back a few moves later with every piece already out. No theory needed, here is how it works, one move at a time. White plays d4 and c4. Look at e5, the pawn on d4 covers it. Black is not supposed to be able to go there. Most players answer with e6 and d5. They block the center and settle in for a long, slow game. Nothing wrong with that. It is also exactly what white wanted. Black plays e5 anyway, straight into the pawn that guards it. That is a gambit, giving away a pawn on purpose, to get something better in return. White takes the pawn. He is a pawn up, and for one move it looks like black just blundered. Knight to g4. It is not running away, it is attacking the pawn on e5, and on the way it also touches f2, the one square only white's king defends. White defends the pawn with the bishop on f4. Black brings the knight to c6, attacking it a second time. Every black move so far has attacked something. Bishop to b4 gives check. White has to deal with the check right now, so black got a piece out for free. That is what the pawn bought, time. Being straight with you, if white simply gives the pawn back and trades pieces off, this is equal and a bit dull. The Budapest is a bet on the first 10 moves. Queen to e7, and now 3 black pieces hit the pawn on e5. White cannot defend it that many times, so black takes it back next move. One pawn, and in exchange every black piece comes out attacking something. Then the pawn comes home. That is the whole opening. White has 4 sensible ways to meet the Budapest. 3 of them give the pawn back on their own, and 1 of them you need a plan for. Here is all 4. Here we are after 3 moves, with the knight attacking the pawn. White has 4 sensible ways to handle this. You need an answer to each one, so take them slowly. The most common answer, the bishop defends the pawn. Black attacks it with everything, trades the knights off, and takes it back anyway. Material is level and black is fine. If white just develops a piece, put the bishop on c5. Bishop and knight now both aim at f2, and white has to spend a move on e3 to block that. The hardest answer. White gives the pawn straight back and builds a wall of pawns instead. You have your pawn, he has the space. Aim at d4. His pawns on e4 and f4 cannot cover that square, so a piece has to babysit it for the rest of the game. White can also refuse the pawn and push past with d5. Nothing to fear, bishop to c5 and carry on. One of the games later in this video is white losing this in 5 moves. Back to the main position. If white plays anything that ignores the pawn, a quiet developing move, a queen move, h3, you just take it back. h3 attacks the knight. The knight moves to e5, which saves it and wins the pawn back in 1 move. Black is level, with a knight already in the middle. If you remember one thing, remember the order. e5. Knight g4. Knight c6. Bishop b4 with check. Queen e7. Pieces out first, pawn second. Against almost everything, the pawn comes back by itself. Against e4, aim at d4. That is the whole chapter. You do not need to memorize moves to play this opening. Every Budapest position is played with the same 3 ideas. This is the position from the last chapter. Black has 3 plans here, and they are the same 3 plans in almost every Budapest game. Trade the knights off and take the pawn. Material is level again, and black has a knight parked in the middle of the board on e5. Swap the bishop for the knight on d2. Giving up a bishop feels wrong, but that knight was the piece guarding c4 and f3. Now nothing guards them. Castle, then rook to e8. The white king is still on that file, with only his own bishop and pawn in the way, so he has to spend moves untangling. And keep one square in mind, d3. A knight there sits inside white's position, and no pawn can ever chase it away. Watch what it does in the next chapter. Take the pawn back, trade the knight on d2, put the rook on the e-file. 3 ideas, and you can find the rest yourself. 2 mistakes lose the Budapest far more often than anything white does. Then the reward, when white is the greedy one. White has just played a 3. It looks like a lazy little pawn move, but it attacks the bishop on b4, and this is where most Budapest games are quietly lost. Castle here and white takes the bishop for free. Black wins 1 pawn back with the knight and is still a whole piece down. Always answer the threat first. Mistake 2, the knight jumps into f2. It attacks the queen on d1 and the rook on h1 at the same time, that is a fork, and it looks unstoppable. The king takes the knight. The bishop checks, the king takes that too, and walks. 2 pieces gone for 2 pawns, 1 spare check, and then nothing. A fork only wins material if the forking piece can get out alive. Count the defenders of the square before you jump into it. Back to a 3. Here is what black should play, the knight takes the pawn on e5. And yes, the bishop on b4 is still hanging. Let him take it. He takes the bishop. Knight to d3. Checkmate, on move 8. Look at the white king. Every square around him is filled by his own pieces, so he cannot move. The pawn on e2 could capture the knight, but it is pinned, move it and the queen on e7 takes the king. Nothing else on the board reaches d3. One rule for the whole opening. The pawn is not the point, the free moves are. Take the pawn when it comes back for nothing, and never spend a piece chasing it. Watch the bishop on b4, leave f2 alone, and let the greedy pawn grab do the work for you. Philadelphia, 1936. The whole game lasts 5 moves. The Budapest Gambit. Black offers the e5 pawn on move 2. White pushes past instead of taking, and the bishop drops onto c5, already looking at f2. Bishop g5, pinning the knight against the queen. The knight moves anyway. It attacks the bishop, and it covers f2, so bishop takes f2 is mate next move. White takes the queen. Bishop takes f2. Checkmate. The king cannot take it, because the knight is covering the square. He owned a queen for exactly 1 move. The king never had a square the whole game. Budapest, 1933. Black plays a move that just hangs a bishop. The Budapest. Black gives up e5 and comes back for it with the knight. White holds the pawn with the queen. Black gives it back to open the bishop. Black castles, and knight c6 hits the queen for the first time. Rook e8, knight b4, every move hits her. For queen moves already. Knight e3, deep in white's camp, touching c2 and d1. Knight c2, check, forking the king and the corner rook. White takes it, and he is a clean piece ahead. Bishop b4. It pins the queen to the king, and it is hanging to the knight. Because if the knight takes it, queen d1 is mate. The e3 knight guards her. The bishop cannot be taken, the queen is pinned, and white resigned. A piece up, and the one defense he had was a move he never looked for. That's all of them. Which one was your favorite? Tell me in the comments, and subscribe for daily chess.